Hey, what's up, guys? This is Kurt. Some of you probably know me. I run Orican's Lair, the community blog. I put out a few different free variants and some D100 tables, and also a free RPG called Gateway RPG. But anyways, I'm not here to promote any of that stuff. I'm actually just bored and felt like playing some Quiet Year solo just to kind of give everybody a demo of it. And maybe if I can actually see some of these comments that come through, maybe I can actually have people jump in a late night session. But if not, no big deal. I'm actually just gonna go ahead and give a run through here real quick after I get set up. So basically, I'll give a kind of a quick overview while I'm going through this. So the Quiet Year is actually it's not a tabletop role-playing game per se, it's more of a map-building, storytelling game. So basically, you take turns going around the table and doing different things where you'll be adding things to your map here. So it basically can be used as kind of a... we used it in one of my sessions when we had a person cancel. So we were supposed to play Dungeons & Dragons, but of course we didn't really want to play without that person, as we were going into a pretty main spot in the campaign. So we decided to just kind of play this as a one-off. So the original game here, it's supposed to be set in a post-apocalyptic setting. That setting's pretty open and to everybody, to anything really. And you're supposed to be kind of building a community and seeing what kind of things the community might need, and projects that you might want to start, and how those kind of all go around. So I'll just read the opening description here. This kind of gives a good description of what the game's about. But anyways, this is the original version. In my version that I kind of created, it's actually more geared around a medieval fantasy setting, such as Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder. And it's not focused so much on the community, it's actually focused on a guild of heroes to kind of spur people creating stories around their heroes, maybe the heroes that they've played in games, or ones that just kind of come to mind. But I'll get into that as we go along. You'll see how it goes. And I apologize if this is a pretty boring video. I haven't done a video in a really long time, and it's actually haven't done a live video probably at all, ever. So take it easy on me. Anyhow, so the opening story for the original The Quiet Year basically says, for a long time we were at war with the jackals. Now finally we've driven them off and left with a year of relative peace. One quiet year with which to build our community up and learn again how to work together. Come winter, the frost shepherds will arrive, and we might not survive the encounter. This is when the game will end, but we don't know about that yet. What we know is that right now, in this moment, we have an opportunity to build something. So that's the original game concept. Again, that can be any genre. Could be a post-apocalyptic, future, modern, old school. But for our purposes, I'm going to run through just a basic high fantasy module of this. So some of the things that the variant that I wrote up real quick for Guild and Glory, the main difference is that, again, instead of rebuilding a settlement, we are members of a new adventurers guild that will be establishing their presence in a brand new thriving settlement to ensure that it prospers. The area around the settlement is mostly unknown and presents new opportunities, resources, magical items, etc., but also new problems such as monsters, rival settlements, etc. And then after the year, a Dark Lord will arrive in the land, and the group will have to decide if their town of heroes can stand up to this insurmountable force, or if they will fall. So in this version, you'll be acting primarily as a group of adventurers and their leaders, rather than the entire community. The focus will be to tell stories of how heroes work together to better the community, and some changes regarding how we would think about the basic elements of the game will change. So, to kind of go over, the basics, I'll refer back to the Quiet Years basic version here. So, in the basic version of the game, and I'll try not to drone on too much about the whole rules, because, you can get them pretty easily out there and read them for yourself. But what we will do is we start with sketching our terrain. Terrain can be anything. It'll go round robin as usual per the game before you start. And then you also want to discuss, what type of setting you'll be playing in, and what type of community too. So let me just go ahead, I'm going to set this up real quick so that I can start drawing on the board here. That'll probably give us a better idea of what's going on and be a lot more interesting than looking at a book. So 1 second. You might get to see my lovely face. Alright, now I'm upside down. Cool. Well, alright. Let's just invert that. There we go. Get these wires out of the way. Sorry if it's brushing up against the microphone. Alright, so I'm just going to turn this around again. Alright, how's that looking? Looks pretty good on my angle here. Alright, so, like I said, the first thing that the game requires players to do is to sketch an outline of the surrounding area and the terrain. So, for the purposes of this, I'll just say, maybe there's like 3 people in a game. So I'm going to sketch, one person says, alright, I like the idea that there's mountains in the terrain. So they draw some pretty rough mountain terrain up here. Alright. So then our next player, they say, okay, well, how about from the mountains we have a nice waterfall, and that actually forms into a river. Let's use some blue here. Try not to get completely in the way. Alright, so we got a pretty rough looking map terrain here. There we go. How's that looking? Again, apologies for the janky setup. Alright, and then our third person, we'll just say that they say that there's like a maybe go with... let's just be crazy and creative with it. Let's just say they say, like, oh, up in the far reaches, there's actually a volcano that lies dormant. Alright, so, got our volcano up here. Alright, so after we draw our terrain, this is where the for Guild and Glory variant kind of does something different. It decides that we would already be an established settlement, so we would again go round robin, and we would draw what that settlement looks like. So let's just say you may sit at my fire while Park shields. So let's see here. So if we're drawing the settlement, we'll just say it's a small village that they're starting out in. Give some thatched roof cottages. Maybe the Trogdor will show up. So that would be like one person drawing some houses. Maybe the next person decides... Sorry, that's a little blurry right there. There we go. Maybe the next person decides that it actually has a fence around it. So we'll go ahead and we'll just draw like a pretty primitive fence they would come up with that guards this little town. And then maybe somebody else says that on the outskirts of the town it's set near some old ruins, and that's what the town was kind of built there for. So we'll just go ahead and put some scraggly looking ruins here just to give it our nice little medieval setting. Alright, so then lastly the group would just build kind of their idea of where the guild would be living. Probably within the town, so we'll just draw a little guild hall. Give it some banners that look like eyeballs for some reason. Wow, that is looking good. Let me see if I can reduce some of this glare going on here. It's probably coming from this side. There we go. Oh yeah, that's way better. Okay. Anyhow. So, the other part of the setup that we need to go through is actually setting up the deck of cards. So you get a standard 52 deck of playing cards. You will separate them out into each of the suits. And then you will want to shuffle them all within their actual suit. So, each suit actually represents a season. So since this game is actually called the Quiet Year, each of these represents a season. So you have hearts representing spring, diamonds representing summer, clubs representing fall, and finally you have spades representing winter. So, I'll go ahead and I'll just give a quick shuffle of each of these. Doesn't really matter. The only thing that really matters is once the King of Spades comes up, the game ends. And I'll get into how that works out once we get there. Alright, so let me go ahead, I'll just, flip this and put these all together. So I'm not going to run through like the entire 52 cards of this deck, but we'll go through a bunch of the different options and see what we come up with. Alright, so now that we have that situated, now we kind of explain how the game works to the group. It talks a lot about the different actions that you're going to have each turn. So, for our purposes, the original game says that your actions can be discovering something new, and this is after you draw a card and do what the card actually asks you to. So, that's first. You draw the card, you read the Oracle, which this is the Guild and Glory Oracle, with all the different options for the different cards of the the season that you're in. On top of that, after you do what the card says and draw it on the map, then you get to choose one other thing that you can do as a player. And this could be discovering something new, which is basically what it sounds like. You can place on the map, tell a story about something that might be new out there. It says, like, some examples are like, there's a dried up well located at the edge of town. There are mangy wolves that have been slinking around the woods. I had some of my own spin for the variant here, discovering something new, like a magical forest has been found within the outskirts of town, a witch has been seen kidnapping children, those kind of things. And then you draw it on the map somewhere. So if we said there was a witch somewhere out in the forest, then I'll just draw up here. There's like a nice little forest. Maybe this is a candy cane house with a witch. Why not? With her dang gingerbread house. There's the stupid witch hanging out there. Sure, beautiful. Alright, so anyways. So discovering something new, and then there's holding a discussion. So holding a discussion is basically what it sounds like. You're going to be taking turns discussing some part of what you think that your guild of adventurers would need to do. And it's just supposed to be a very short sentence that each person is supposed to do. It's not supposed to get long-winded. It's not supposed to be like an argument or anything like that. The original game says that it's just like a 1 to 2 sentences. And if you're the one who's opening up this discussion, if you open with a question to the group, you actually chime in last on a decision. So they kind of go through some examples here. So they say, could we use the school bus as a sleeping area for the village children? Again, this is from the original Quiet Years, so they're talking in more like post-apocalyptic. For our purposes, we could say, like, should we retaliate against the band of goblins that stole our cows? The answer goes around robin. Some people say, I don't know if we're ready to deal with them goblins. That witch really needs to be dealt with. And then the next person could chime in and say, like, oh, absolutely, we're going to kill those goblins. So that's what holding a discussion is, and that's just one section of a person's turn. Now, the third thing that people are allowed to do, the original game, it was called Start a Project. I changed it to be starting a quest, because projects for the original game were more or less around, do we build a fence? Yes. Okay, how long is it going to take us to build the fence? 6 weeks. Okay, so then you signify that 6 weeks are going to happen. But in case for Guild and Glory, we're going to make projects quests. So, and how quests, I'll just keep using the same lingo, quests, are represented. They actually are represented by a die that gets placed on the board. So when somebody chooses to create a quest, like, let's get rid of this witch, they're going to then propose it to the entire group of players, and the group is going to decide how long is it going to take us to track down and hunt this witch. Let's just say, it's probably pretty easy, it's pretty close to town, so it's going to take 2 weeks. Alright, so we put the die out there for 2 weeks. Alright, so once we go through a whole turn, then the next player's turn, as soon as they draw their card, and after they do their whole turn, then these reduce down. Once these get to 0, then the person who originally started the quest gets to talk about how the quest resolves, and then they draw it on the map. So basically, if they say, okay, well, we found the witch, and we completely burned her house to the ground with her in it, we'll signify that with flames, and she is dead. And then after that, we just continue to go round and round. So it's a pretty easy game. So I'm going to actually try to attempt to go through and just kind of do a quick run through of stuff, and just kind of, if anybody on chat wants to chime in with an idea or something, feel free, because I can actually see it. I'm using my phone, but I'm projecting to my TV, so I can actually see the whole chat. Alright. And let me just double check I didn't miss any of the basics here. Nope. That looks pretty much it. Alright. So, first card we get. Alright, so we are in spring. King of Hearts. Alright, so I get my... Oh, one thing I did forget to talk about. Sorry to backtrack here. There's a thing that's called Contempt that's also in the game, represented by usually like beads or things of that nature. Basically what those are used for is like when you're holding a discussion, or if there's ever a chance that you feel like somebody within your guild of heroes or the community feels like they have some sort of contempt with an action that's being taken, or if they feel like they're not being represented, you just basically take this and kind of represent it, as the community not getting along. These things can be turned back at any time. Maybe on your turn, if you decide to do something without, other people's approval, yada yada, you can turn these things back in. Our group hasn't really seen a big use for them, but I've watched some other people play, and they seem to be taking contempt like left and right. So I guess it's just, based on the group that you play with, but they don't really stand to be any significant, like, game changer. They can't really be turned in to, like, change the game. Alright, so let's run through King of Hearts here. Alright, so King of Hearts, in spring. It says, a group of adventurers discover something buried in the ground. What is it? Or, a guild leader confesses to past crimes and atrocities. What has he done? What does the guild do? Alright, so at this point I would get to choose one of these two options here. So I'm actually going to choose the first option. The group of adventurers discover something buried in the ground. What is it? So I think, let's see, they're in a new area. And there's old ruins. So let's say that they actually find maybe an old shield buried in the ground that once belonged to the ruler of this once probably great kingdom. So you get to draw it on the map. So I'll just draw a shield over here. We'll say that it has like some sort of eagle on it. Or maybe like a phoenix. Yeah, we'll do that. So we have the shield. And I'll just have like some stick figure dude over here pointing at it with exclamation points. There we go. So there's our shield that they found in the ground. Alright, so then for the rest of my turn, I get to decide if I want to hold a discussion, discover something new, or start a quest. So, I think at this point I'll, open it up to the group and say that I'd hold a discussion. And I would say that the shield is a good omen, that this was once a prosperous place and it will be renewed to that. And then we can go round robin and other people can maybe agree and say, yes, I believe it is a good omen, or they could disagree and say, we don't know anything about this shield and who it belonged to before them. Maybe we should find that out. Alright, so that's the end of one turn. So then this card gets started, goes off to wherever. And we go to the next week. So we have the Jack of Hearts. No. Jack of Hearts says, you see a good omen. What is it? Well, that's a pretty weird coincidence. Or the other option is you see a bad omen. What is it? So let's say that the next player was actually the person who didn't think it was a good omen. So let's say they focus on that shield again. And they say, ever since that shield was found, there have been ravens flocking around it and the ruins. That would definitely be a sign of a bad omen, as we all probably know. Alright, so then they would get to start a quest, or discover something new, or hold another discussion. So let's say they actually start a quest. Let's say they are very interested in maybe excavating more in the ruins, sending a group of people to kind of, dig around more into there and make sure that what this shield might actually be about. So the group would probably determine, let's see, how long is that going to take for us to figure out what's going on up in these ruins. Let's just say it's like 3 weeks. Won't go into a huge amount of detail here. Alright, so you place that there. That's their turn. They move on. Alright, so third person, they get Ace of Hearts. Options are Is your guild hiring locals from the community? What criteria do people have to gain inclusion into the guild? Or have to gain inclusion into the guild? Or are there distinct religious orders attached to the guild? If so, what orders provide financial backing or work within the guild? So, let's see. We'll take the religious route here. We can say that yes, there is a religious order that has been attached with our guild. We'll say it's the Church of Helm. So maybe we'll go ahead and signify that by drawing a nice church in the town. There we go. Looks more like a devil head, but that works for me. Alright, so they decide that, yes, the Church of Helm is backing them. We'll go into a little bit more detail, because it says, are they financially backing them, or do they work within the guild themselves? We'll say they do work within the guild. They dispatch clerics that work within the guild. So I guess we'll just draw like a plus sign or cross right here. And maybe we'll just draw another stick figure holding this cross to represent a cleric. Again, there's no real wrong way to signify anything. If the group knows what that guy holding a cross is, then you'll know. Okay, so those are your basics on turns. I'll just go ahead and skip ahead. Let's see here. Let me go ahead and I'll skip to summer just to kind of do some of those. So each month actually starts presenting different things happening. So they say that the spring, it's basically a lot of things that kind of, you draw a lot of stuff on the map, you kind of explore, nothing real major happens unless, you know, the group is actually deciding that these things are happening by starting quests or discovering something new. But once you get into like summer, then you'll have like, you'll have things like scarcities and you know, adding new abundances or quests just randomly failing, those kind of things. Now I didn't cover the, I forgot to cover the abundances and scarcity thing. And that's basically from the beginners, the actual game, The Quiet Year. So they actually look at those resource things. Again, it goes round robin. Each person decides on resources that the community might have already. And then you pick one that is your abundant resource, and then the other two are your scarcities. And then those things are going to potentially change, or you might be adding new things. So we'll just say that this community already, since they were a grown community, there's mountains nearby, so we'll just put stone, and we'll put a plus sign to signify that it is abundance. And then our scarcities, doesn't really look like there's too much forestry, so we can put maybe put wood. Maybe that's a rarity in this land. And maybe we can also put that, and you don't have to specifically relay this to the community. If you want to maybe relay this to being a part of your guild and what they might be lacking, that's also an option. So let's say that our guild is lacking armor. Maybe our guild specifically, let's just say metal armor. Say that that's not abundant for our guild. Alright, so as I was saying, each type of season brings new different things to the board here. So I'm gonna go into summer now. Here we go. So we'll start with that. So we got a 3 of diamonds, which is now summer. Alright, so it says, summer is a time of exploration. Start a quest related to finding new resources. Or, summer is a time for conquest and the gathering of might. Start a quest related to military readiness and conquest. So let's see. We did just decide to cover our resources here and say that wood and armor are our needs. Probably not just for the community, but for the whole guild itself. Both of those would probably be pretty important. So let's say that we start a quest to find a forest. So we'll just go ahead and say it's going to take us a few weeks to send a party out into unknown territory and have them check back in to see if they found a forest. So we'll put that up here. And we'll just say at this point, this whole thing probably is ticked down. And then at that person's turn, once they say, oh, we've discovered that the ruins were actually from a evil presence, and that shield is actually cursed. So we should actually destroy the ruins themselves, because they are cursed lands, basically. So at this point, since that was just the research phase, maybe I just kind of put a skull head to signify that these are kind of off limits. But on their same turn, on the next person's turn, they can either hold a discussion with the town and say, hey, you know, I think that we should destroy that place. And if somebody disagrees, then, you know, of course, that's where these contempt tokens can kind of come into play. Or they can start another project and say, alright, we're destroying it. We're gonna take this whole thing down. It's probably gonna take us 6 weeks to do that. So they can put another project out there and decide in 6 weeks that that whole place is going to be taken down, or, you know, that shield's going to be melted down or put back into the ground and covered up, and that place is like off limits. Alright, so we'll just keep going through some of these cards. We'll skip the other parts of the turns just to kind of give you guys an idea of some of the card options that are going to come into play. So, 10 of diamonds, you discover a cache of supplies, treasures, or resources. You can add a new abundance. Or a scarcity has gone unaddressed for too long. Start a quest that will alleviate that scarcity. So again, here's our current scarcities and abundances. So if we wanted to say, hey, we discover a cache of, you know, metal ingots, and our smithy is actually able to create metal armors now, and so then that would become our new abundance. And then, you know, we can draw that somewhere over here. Maybe we can draw a blacksmith. And give a nice hammer, an anvil. Maybe that's a sign. That's a big sign. Alright, so I'll go through a few more, and then I think I could probably just wrap that up. Let's see here. Alright, so we'll do one more of these and move on to fall. So 9 of diamonds. A quest fails. Which one and why? Or something goes foul and supplies are ruined. Add a new scarcity. So let's say quest fails. And this one was, you know, our kind of biggest one. This one's probably already resolved at actually that point. So let's say they say the adventurers return and they did find a forest out there. So just add in big forest. And you can add as many details as you want. It doesn't have to just be they found a forest, we're done. You don't have to be that like mundane about it. You can be like, you know, oh, they found a lush forest and there were elves that lived there and they offered us peace. And then you can, you know, draw even more things like a little another settlement. So, we'll say that the quest fails early and why. Alright, so at this point, we'll get rid of that. This quest failed on the cursed ruins. Why? Let's say as they were trying to destroy it, they actually awoke a dragon that was underneath the ruins the entire time. And it killed all of the heroes that were, you know, attempting there. So now I'll go ahead and I will draw on here a big old Trogdor. Why not? The S is for sucks. Gotta give him them wing-a-ling things. Big beefy arm. Consummate V's, yes. There we go. That's looking good. It's pretty Trogdor. Give him some fire. Alright, so not only are those ruins cursed, they now awoke a Dagon. Alright, so now that monster presents problems to the area, but again, unless like a card kind of tells you what to do, or if in the discovering something new phase, a player decides that, you know, this dragon does something, then it's probably not affecting the town as is. So we'll go ahead and we will go into fall. Alright. 2 of clubs. Someone returns to the guild. Who and where were they? So again, this game could be pretty useful for people who, this version of the game can be pretty useful for people who have like specific characters that they like to role play or they have in mind, and you know, your group might even know those specific players. So they might say like, oh, my fighter Gideon has returned. They were far away battling Tiamat somewhere with another party or whatever your campaign probably is, and they are now in the town. And what's kind of fun about that, bringing in your characters, since you can actually represent the entire like guild, or you can start representing those specific characters as maybe guild leaders. So you can actually just start role playing kind of your character and what they might be, deciding to do. So my character is the Gideon character. He's actually a kind of like a celebrity Sean Connery. So we'll say he shows back up. He's a fighter. I'm gonna give him his sword and shield and his goatee. Pretty basic. But now if I was holding a discussion, maybe I start holding a discussion as Gideon. And I'd be like, "Oh, I see you got a damn dragon here. We're gonna have to deal with him. What you say?" And then everybody can chime in. Maybe they can start chiming in as their characters and have more, role-playing type fun with it. Alright, so next one we'll go with, we got King of Fall. So, it says a natural disaster strikes the area. What is it? Choose one. So you can focus on getting everyone to safety. This would remove an abundance and a quest fails. See, like I said, once you get into these other seasons, then stuff starts stacking and it gets a lot worse. Or you focus on protecting your supplies and hard work at any cost. Several important people in the community die as a result. Who are they? Alright, so I'll just say we focus on getting everyone to safety. What's the natural disaster? Well, we have a volcano, and it was active. So it was dormant for a while, but now we'll say it's active. So we can go ahead and shoot that out, draw some lava. We'll say that this lava kind of came in to the town a little bit. Maybe it burnt down our fence line here. Maybe they said what? We reduce an abundance. Alright, so we'll say this lava comes down, and now, guess what? It burnt down the blacksmith. And guess what that does? We had metal armor as our abundance. Now it's back to being a scarcity again. Alright, so I'm going to move on into winter. We'll get into a few of these, and then I'll show you how the actual end game is and how it is different, a little bit different. Alright, so winter comes, winter has come. And if you want, you could really do a Game of Thrones version with this. They say frost shepherds in their description. I mean, come on. Winter comes and the bad guys show up at the end of the game. Alright, so 5 of spades. We have winter elements destroy a resource at a scarcity, or winter elements leave everyone cold, tired, and miserable. Quest dice are not reduced this week. Well, since we don't have any quest dice actively out there, I guess we would just do the adding a scarcity. So winter comes, and we don't have to take away stone as a scarcity. Maybe we start looking at some of the other things that we probably already had. So maybe winter's kind of destroyed a portion of our wall. So maybe there's a big gap now in this wall. So we can add fortifications as our scarcity. Alright, and we'll just do one more winter, and then I'll show you the King of Winter. Alright, so three of spades comes out. Alright, so 3 of spades. Someone comes up with an ingenious solution to a big problem, and as a result, a quest finishes early. What was their idea? Or someone comes up with a plan to ensure safety and comfort during the coldest months. Start a quest related to this. Alright, so we'll choose, since we don't have any quests out there in this, we'll just say someone comes up with a plan and we start a quest. So let's say that Friar Thomas from the Church of Helm decides, you know what, maybe we should move all of our people closer to that active volcano to keep warm in these cold months. So let's start a project to maybe set up a winter haven, if you will, another little settlement that's a little bit closer to the volcano. We'll say that's definitely going to take 6 weeks. Now, you might not get to accomplish everything, as everything keeps changing, and what happens is when winter hits, since you've shuffled all of your cards, there is the King of Spades that actually just ends the game immediately. So, I'll find him right here. Alright, so let's say King of Spades just comes up randomly while we're in the middle of winter. Maybe we have only gotten this down to 3 more weeks, but they say the game ends. Now, original Quiet Year, it just says the game is over, and that is pretty much it. You're kind of left to your devices to say, oh, who were those Frost Shepherds? Oh, you know. And from the 2 times that I played the game, when it got to just be game over, kind of at that point, I think everybody was mentally exhausted with, you know, just storytelling in general, that just kind of like stalled out. So I felt like maybe adding more text to this particular card in game end, just to kind of like settle things, would be better for this variation. So in this one, I changed the king to say, an evil leader arrives with a vast army. Who leads them, and what is this army made of? The guild sends out all of their best heroes and resources in a battle against insurmountable odds. Choose one. So first of all, we describe this evil leader. You could give him a name. You could give a description, you know, who this big bad is. And then you can really describe what type of army. You know, they have an army of orcs, an army of dragons, a combined army of, you know, whatever. And then you can draw that, you know, however you feel to kind of be at the, you know, final point of your map here. And then where it comes into choosing one, it says the heroes win the battle. Each person contributes a short narrative about how a specific hero or group of heroes succeeds in battle. Or the heroes lose the battle. Each person then contributes a short story, short narrative about how a specific hero or group of heroes falls in battle. Then the game is over. So again, it then makes the group kind of do that round robin just like we started in the game. And then, you know, if you want to draw this epic conclusion, let's say, I'm going to say at this point, if winter came, we have no metal armor, we have scarcities on fortifications, our fortifications are down, we were in the middle of trying to build a new city over here, there's a dragon. Let's say this Dark Lord shows up and reclaims his castle. And he's actually gonna ride he's gonna ride our Trogdor into battle. We're just gonna make him like a Palpatine knight. I don't know. Let's see here. Give him some sort of magic staff. With some Eldritch looking green coming off of it there. And then I'm gonna say that, you know, our town's gonna lose. So we'd go and say, you know, again, this comes to be a good point where we could say, like, specific heroes that we might know or have played, or even like NPCs that, you know, from other games. Say like, oh well, Gideon, he climbs to the top and he gets a good few swings in on the dragon, thinks he's got, you know, a good chance to fell the beast, and out of nowhere he takes an arrow to the back by a couple of orc archers that he didn't see behind him. And then if you want to draw it, yeah, you can draw that in there, and, you know, here's Gideon climbing, arrow in the back. And the next person could go around and say, like, how, you know, they fell in battle. And that pretty much would end the game. I think it would be a more fun version. Not to say that the Quiet Year itself isn't a fun game. I had a blast the 2 times the 3 times I actually played through it all. They actually do have a version where the monsters that are in their quiet year before the humans actually return to, you know, try to stamp them out again. So that one was pretty interesting to be from a monster perspective. And that's what kind of got me to the perspective of, well, if we have a version that's just all about the monsters, we have a version that can be about heroes. So that's basically where they came up with. But as you can see, just with, you know, my limited amount of you know, spending time here and drawing just a few cards and drawing it out myself, it looks like we have a pretty good little map laid out here. Also, one other suggestion I can say for this is this could also be used for an interesting session 0 if you were interested, because it already kind of defines the area, maybe, you know, where your adventures might even start, and, you know, after this Dark Lord or whoever comes and trashes this town, you know, that can be a good, you know, big boss NPC that either is still here that needs dealt with, or any of the other stuff that's still in the area that needs dealt with. So it just really opens things up for, you know, a lot of different use. So, but hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, be nice. This is my first live video I've ever probably done. You're a good, awesome group of people. I like playing in games with you all. Hope to be playing some. If you're interested in maybe getting a session together of the Quiet Year, if you've actually watched all the way through this far, kudos to you if you have. I appreciate it. But yeah, look forward to, you know, getting in on some games and maybe posting some games to run through this, or, you know, any of the other games that I am partial to. So until next time, guys, enjoy and happy adventuring.